Welcome you back into this third module of this course on compiler design. This belongs to the first unit of the course and it is the third module under the first unit. In the previous module, we discussed about the different phases of compilation and what is the output produced by each and every phase of compilation. In this module, we will discuss how these different phases can be grouped together into passes of compilation. Already, we saw that there are two basic passes in our modules in the compilation process. One is called as the front end and the second is called as the back end. The basic purpose of front end is to analyze the given source language. So the modules in the front end or the phases in front end depend on the source language and they are independent of the target machine. The syntax analyzer calls the scanner to get the tokens as and when needed to fix up the syntax structure of the language. This syntax analysis as well as lexical analysis and the semantic analysis all belong to the front end of the compilation process. The back end of the compiler mainly consists with dependent on the target machine and it depends on code optimization and code generation phase. It is independent of the source language and it depends on the intermediate language and the target platform. Here, for example, let us consider that there are different languages, Fortran, C, Pascal, COBOL, and so on. All of these languages generate a common intermediate language code, and this common intermediate language code can be optimized by the optimizer, and from this optimized code, the code generator can generate the code for the target machine. So making use of the intermediate code, the backend of the compiler can be common for different front ends of the compiler belonging to different languages. So the backend is independent of the source programming language. Now we will see what is the effect of reducing the number of passes. Basically, a pass is a one complete scan of the input source code. So if n number of phases completely scan an input source code and produces another representation of the source code, then it becomes a pass. We will see in this slide what is the effect of reducing the number of passes. When the number of passes is reduced, the time taken to read and write intermediate files to and from the disk can be reduced because the output of each and every pass is written to the hard disk. Each and every time we reduce the number of passes, the time taken to read and write the files to the hard disk can be reduced. But the amount of RAM space required to store the intermediate results increases because all the information for a single pass is only stored in the RAM. So if the number of passes is reduced, the size of the RAM space increases. Whenever the different phases have more coupling with one another, they are usually grouped into a single pass. For example, let us consider the operation of the lexical analysis and the syntax analysis phases. Whenever the syntax analyzer requests a token from the lexical analyzer, it calls the lexical analysis phase, and this lexical analysis phase returns the token to the syntax analyzer to construct the syntax tree. Hence, the operation of lexical analysis and syntax analysis phases are highly coupled with one another. So these two phases can be usually grouped into a single pass. On the other hand, let us consider the code generation and the syntax analysis phases. In this case, the code generation phase does not depend upon the output of the syntax analyzer. Rather, it depends upon the output of the intermediate code generator or the intermediate code. Therefore, usually the syntax analysis phase and the code generation phase cannot be grouped together. So only the code generation phase and the intermediate code generation phase can be grouped together into a single pass, and the principle of backpatching that you will read in detail in later lessons can be used in this in order to fill up for the forward references and so on. For that purpose, backpatching can be made use of. If you consider the compilation passes in a multipass compiler, this is how it is organized. In the first pass, all the pre-processing, macro processing, all that will take place. In the second pass, syntax directed translation and intermediate code generation will take place. In the third pass, optimization will take place. In the last pass, code generation will take place. Usually in the multiple pass compiler, these are the different passes. Otherwise, there are at least two passes, the front end or the analysis pass and the back end or the synthesis pass of the compiler are present. In the previous slides, we saw about the passes and how to group the different phases into the passes. Only the related phases should be grouped into a particular pass. The unrelated phases should not be grouped into a pass. In the forthcoming slides, we will see about the cousins of the compiler or other types of tools that are related with the compilation process. The first is the preprocessor. The preprocessor processes the import statements and other types of macros, and then it gives us input to the compiler. The compiler generates the assembly code and the assembler generates the machine language code. The linker is used to link all the object modules for a particular program, and then the loader loads these modules into the memory and executes them. So all these tools are called as the cousins of compiler. Let us see what is the functionality of a preprocessor. It augments the source language with macros, inclusions, pre-processing statements, and language extensions. All these operations will be done or expanded before the compilation process. An assembler, it produces the assembly, it considers the assembly language code, which is produced as output from the compiler, and produces the machine language equivalent relocatable machine language code. The linker links all the object modules produced by different parts of the source program into a single relocatable object file. The loader loads this object file in the memory and executes it. So these are the functions of the different tools that are linked with the compilation tool. Debugger is a program that is used to determine execution errors in a compiled program. It can also halt an execution at pre-specified locations called as breakpoints. Basically, a debugger is used to set up breakpoints in a program and then to execute and find out the results up till the breakpoint. Hence, it is used to identify if any errors are there and to correct the particular program. Other tools are profiler, which is used to find out what is the space occupied or how much time the code is executing and so on. It is used to check the performance of the executable code that is generated by the compiler. Program managers are used to coordinate and merge the source code produced by different team members. So it is used to maintain source code control system and revision control system for large products. Next, we will go on to the various types of compiler construction tools. The first type of compiler construction tool is the scanner generator. The scanner generator is a tool that can be used for scanning purposes. It considers the regular grammar statements in the form of regular expressions and then generates the lexemes based on the finite automaton that is constructed for the specification of that particular lexeme. An example scanner generator is lex. The next type of the tool is the parser generator. The example tool is Yak, which is yet another compiler. The purpose of the parser generator is it gets the specification for the context-free grammar, which is used to construct the syntax trees, and correspondingly generates the push-down automaton based on the specifications given for the context-free grammar. The push-down automaton can be a top-down or a bottom-up type of push-down automaton that is generated based on the specification of the parser. The third type of the compiler construction tool is syntax-directed translation engines that are used to produce the intermediate code. It traverses the parse tree and generates the intermediate code based on the traversal through the parse tree. It makes use of different types of syntax-directed translation schemes. The fourth type of the tool is automatic code generator that is used to generate the code from the intermediate code that is generated. Template matching process for the type of the machine is being followed here. The last type of the tool is code optimization tool, which is called as data flow engines. It makes use of data flow analysis graphs to optimize the code and to generate an optimized code. So, in this module, we saw what is the need to group the different phases of compilers into passes and how these phases can be grouped into passes. What is the effect of reducing the number of passes, and then which are the phases that can be grouped together to form a pass. Then we saw the different types of compiler construction tools, which include lex, Yak, syntax-directed translations, data flow engines, and code generators. We also saw the cousins of compilers, which include preprocessors, which generate the code which can be compiled by a compiler. The output of the compiler is given to the assembler. The assembler generates the target language code. Then the linker tool is used to link the different object modules generated, and then the loader loads the linked object modules into the memory for execution. Apart from this, profilers and debuggers were also discussed. With this, we come to an end for chapter 1 on compiler design. Next, we will go on to the chapter 2. Thank you very much.